Part 9. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dowby in the World. Chapter 81. Chapter 81 Olympic Extra. Contains a lot of spoilers, please read with caution if you don't want to be spoiled. One hot August day, in the cool Love House, this year's Olympic Games were being played on the large LCD screen. Sitting in front of the TV was a beautiful woman, with her legs crossed and her left hand holding popcorn. There were a bunch of drinks and snacks on the table, as well as a large bucket of her favorite strawberry ice cream. He kept stuffing popcorn into his mouth with his right hand and watched the TV series with his eyes. Ah! Ning Dao is so handsome, ah! Little Dao Tao, ugh! Qian Yuman looked at his muscles and swallowed hard, ah! Little fresh meat. I really want to catch him and bully him. Sturdy inverted triangle figure, definitely feels good in the hand. Ah, little Yang Yang, your height is great, and you look so cute, it's all hers, it's all hers. Qian Yuman cheered excitedly, picking up the rattle on the side and shaking it and shouting from time to time. I won, ah! So handsome. Xiao Dao Tao, I am your fangirl. Seeing his favorite player win the championship, someone jumped up excitedly, grabbed the popcorn and scattered the flowers. It's popcorn. Like many nymphomaniacs, Qian Yuman was alone, holding popcorn and excitedly nymphomaniac. A certain evil man walked over with a resentful look on his face, holding a baby in one hand and a bottle in the other. Honey, my son is hungry, Tangyuj complained. His answers were screams and shouts, and they did not listen to him at all. A certain evil man looked at the man in briefs who won the medal on the TV, and his eyes narrowed dangerously. He threw his several-month-old son into the crib, walked over quickly, and stood directly in front of Qian Yuman, showing off his biceps, chest, and abdominal muscles. Honey, is this pretty boy as handsome or as strong as me? Qian Yuman answered him with practical actions, pushed him away with one hand, and continued screaming at the TV. So handsome. Tangyuj covered his face in sadness and packed his wife back to the bedroom. It was unbearable for her to have such a crazy moment in front of him in front of other men. I want to watch the game. Do you look better than me? No, someone was scared, and what awaited her was a scream. Honey, don't you want to watch gymnastics? I think you can do some gymnastics and it can also enhance the relationship between husband and wife. Come on. I refuse. Is rejection useful? A jealous man will not obey. The little baby was left in the crib, neither crying nor fussing. He looked indifferently at his parents who left him and went back to his room. He is hungry. Once the fight was over, a certain woman was still struggling to get up to watch the game, and a certain man scooped her into his arms. Wife, why are you going? In the swimming finals, I want to watch Xiao Dao Tao win the championship, a certain woman whispered, not daring to say it loudly. Humph. Isn't there something good that your husband can't see enough of? Winning the championship? If your husband is interested in competing, will he also win the gold medal? A certain man said proudly. A certain woman had a look of resentment on her face. She thought of the World Swimming Championship medal that a certain man had placed at home. She also thought of how he pretended not to be able to swim when she first met him and still needed her to save him. He took advantage of her in various ways. The more she felt that she was at a disadvantage. She was being cheated into marriage. I want to see Xiao Dao Tao. A certain man's eyes flashed dangerously, and he immediately packed up and picked up his wife. You like swimming so much, why don't we go to the swimming pool and continue? It seems that my wife is not tired enough and can't get out of the window. Let's see if she wants to see other handsome guys. Today the Olympic Games opens, and I wrote a warm little extra for my beloved concubines. I wish our Olympic athletes will continue to bring glory to the country and win many Olympic gold medals. This is a side story. Extra. Extra. Not the main text. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 82. Chapter 82 Return to China tomorrow. Qian Yuman pushed the money back and insisted that he accept the check. She didn't know who had taken the original 1 million, and she really didn't know when she would get it back. She deliberately tricked Xian Yingzhi into paying him 1 million just to return the money to him. The two of them got together because of the 1 million yuan at first, but now that they have married him, she hopes that they will live a happy life in the future and must return the money to buy his daughter-in-law to him, so that there will be no financial barrier between them. Then I'll take the money, Tang Yuj no longer insisted, folded the check and stuffed it into his pocket. Qian Yuman took a light coat in her hand and put it on Tang Yuj. Mr. Tang, I completed my credits in the last class today. I'm almost there too. Qian Yuman raised her eyes and looked at him. They were 4 years apart. He graduated with a doctorate and she graduated with a bachelor's degree, both of which happened to be in the past few days. Then what do you think I'm going to do after I graduate? There's so much competition for jobs now, and I'm studying French, and I plan to take the exam to be a translator. Good. Hold his arm intimately and act coquettishly with a hint of coquettishness. What if you fail the exam? It's very difficult for a translator to pass the exam. Tang Yuj smiled slightly and reached out to hold her cheek. I will raise you, and you will be responsible for your beauty and beauty at home. When you have children, you will take care of them at home. Qian Yuman grinned happily, lowered her head shyly, and reached out to gently beat his chest. Who is going to give birth to your child? It's okay if you don't have children, you can be my secretary from now on, Tang Yuj suggested again. Secretary Zhang's aggrieved expression immediately came to Qian Yuman's mind. She imagined Secretary Zhang complaining that she had stolen a man and his job, and she couldn't help laughing. Tang Yuj smiled lightly, guessing that her little mind was running wild again. Tang Yuj took her hand and walked out, and Yun Danfan spoke softly. I may have to go back to China for a while in a few days. Go back home. Qian Yuman stopped and looked at him in surprise. Well, I don't know how long it will take to go back. It could be 1 month at the earliest and 3 months at the earliest. Qian Yuman's little face wrinkled up and she pouted her mouth. Going for that long? Tang Yuj reached out and rubbed her head. Fool, I will naturally go back after finishing my studies, and I will spend half of my time in China in the future. Qian Yuman lowered her head in frustration and was a little unhappy. She was somewhat resistant to returning to the country. There were many unhappy things there, and she had no intention of returning to China after graduation. She was so happy during this period that she didn't think about where they would be in the future. She forgot that he was just studying for a PhD, and it was not certain whether he would stay abroad after graduation. Don't you want to go back to China? Tang Yuj smiled warmly, took her into his arms and patted her back gently. I remember that you and I came from the same city, and I thought you would go back. It was my fault if you didn't want to go back to China. I would stay with you in San Francisco. Qian Yuman nodded solemnly. I don't know, give me some time to think about it. Okay, I may leave tomorrow, but I will try to come back as soon as possible. Qian Yuman was very depressed and a little unhappy next. No matter how Tang Yuj coaxed her, she pouted and asked him to give her some time to think about the future. She should think about it carefully. After all, she is married and cannot have the same thoughts as when she was single. When married, she should follow her husband. Wherever he goes, she should go. It was just cities she had many unhappy memories and she was a little afraid to go back. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 83. Chapter 83 Doubt about Mr. Tang's identity. Qian Yuman attended the last class of university today. She will graduate with honors at the end of this class and will be able to get her diploma in a few months. She was a little reluctant to say that. Some classmates knew that she had completed her credits and was about to graduate. They were very reluctant to hold a farewell party for her, but Qian Yuman refused. Actually, she is a bit petty. When she was framed by Wang Qian last time, her classmates who were once close to her were whispering behind her back and believing the rumors. She will never forget the discomfort she felt that day. If Tang Yuj hadn't helped solve it, she doesn't know how things would have developed. Last time Tang Yuj said he would sue Wang Qian, he was not just saying it. He really took Wang Qian to court. Even if Zhu Shaowai helped, he still couldn't save Wang Qian from losing the lawsuit. In the end, Qian Yuman not only compensated her a considerable amount of mental damages, but also publicly apologized for her mistakes, and Qian Yuman's reputation was restored. If there is no clarification, what attitude and face will these people use to face her? They didn't really regard her as a classmate or friend, they were just a group of men and women who liked to be around her. If she wasn't beautiful, outstanding, or the belle of the school, would they still treat her well? Once there is a scandal, they will praise her and revile her to the end. Maybe we won't see each other again after graduation, or we may meet by chance on some occasions. After all, it's just a casual acquaintance. However, I still made an appointment with my best friend Qiao Xiaofeng to have a drink together to celebrate. Qiao Xiaofeng, a senior, still needs some time to earn credits. Come to the bar where they often come to drink, and happily eat delicious food and drink wine. Qiao Xiaofeng gossiped with an ambiguous expression. You are a heterosexual and inhumane guy. I haven't been able to ask you out for more than 10 days. I want to accompany my husband, we are newlyweds, Qian Yuman smiled sweetly. During this period, she ignored Qiao Xiaofeng and received various complaints from her. I don't care, you're treating me today. Qian Yuman readily agreed, and now she has some small wealth. He stole 1 million from Xian Yingzhi and gave it all back to Tang Yuj. Her current wealth is 300,000 yuan obtained from her uncle, which is enough for her to live comfortably for a while. Since it was revealed that Qian's mother was alive, Uncle Qian's family has entered an era of war and chaos, and has been faced with various headaches in resolving debts. There was no time to trouble Qian Yuman, and he didn't dare to. After all, there was a terrifying Mr. Tang behind Qian Yuman. Manman, you look so happy, you asked, are you a vegetarian? Qiao Xiaofeng looked at her ambiguously, looking at her happy face, and stretched out his hand to pull her collar. She wore it today. A turtleneck. It's really strange that I'm still wearing a turtleneck in April. Qian Yuman immediately blocked it and quickly covered it up in anger. There were many ambiguous red spots under the high collar. We are husband and wife, Qian Yuman said matter-of-factly. Is it weird to have sex? It seems like you are a blessing in disguise this time. You have a very good husband. Qiao Xiaofeng was also happy for his friend. However, who is your Mr. Tang? He actually pulled out a gun that day in the hospital. Doctoral student, what kind of gun? Qian Yuman asked doubtfully. Qian Yuman naturally didn't know. At that time, she was lying on Tang Yuj crying sadly, and she didn't even see Tang Yuj pointing a gun at Uncle Qian. Qiao Xiaofeng said in surprise. Don't you know? I have a friend who works as a nurse in the hospital and witnessed what happened at that time. He immediately recognized you as one of them and told me what happened later. Qiao Xiaofeng vividly described what happened that day, which made Qian Yuman's eyes widen. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 84. Chapter 84. Something fishy. Real. That's right. After listening to my friend's description, I thought Mr. Tang was so handsome. He actually carried a gun with him. In order to protect you, He even took out the gun and forced your uncle to answer. Now I'm angry about why I didn't follow you to watch. That picture must be very handsome. Although your husband looks stupid and looks like a good citizen, I didn't expect him to look cool. Chow Xiaofeng looked admiring. For ordinary citizens like them, let alone carrying guns with them, they had never even touched them. My husband is just an ordinary doctoral student, but his family has a little money. Jian Yuman began to think about what happened during this time as he said it. For example, why was it possible to successfully sue Wang Qian? With Zhu Xiaohuai's snobbery in San Francisco, couldn't he help his female companion solve such a small matter? Unless someone of equal or greater strength is suppressing him. She thought it was only because Tang Yuj asked his three outstanding friends for help that the problem could be solved smoothly. Thinking about it now, Mr. Tang's ruthless approach to his uncle was somewhat inconsistent with the gentle and honest image he gave people. Just imagine how ordinary people can meet a group of outstanding friends. All of them have achieved extraordinary things at a young age. In addition to their own excellence, they all have a strong background to support them. Although Mr. Tang is still a student, it does not mean that his family background is ordinary. Oh my God! Manman, you and Mr. Tang have slept together, and you still don't know what kind of person Mr. Tang is? Last time I went to your house, the house was so big, and many of the decorations looked expensive. There are expensive wines in the wine cellar, so it looks like they are rich people. He said those were all left to him by his father. She had no doubts, and judging from his appearance, she didn't want to talk more about family matters. She knew that he was a rich second generation, but he had a bad relationship with his father and his mother passed away many years ago. I have been married to Mr. Tang for half a month, and I have never seen his family, nor have I heard him mention anyone in his family. She thought she would understand him as they got along slowly, so she didn't ask him. He would naturally understand things in depth, and she didn't need to press him. I was asked by a friend today. The more I thought about it, the more I felt that there was something fishy about it. The matter was not as ordinary as Mr. Tang made it light. Chow Xiaofeng chuckled and bumped her with his arm. What are you afraid of? You are already married to Tang Yuj. You have the certificate in hand and you are still worried that the marriage is fake? Anyway, you have made money and you have a husband who loves you. Qian Yuman smiled sweetly and raised her chin with some pride. My husband not only loves me very much, but also looks handsome and has perfect muscles. Speaking of this, Qian Yuman laughed like a madman. Every time the two of them were alone, Qian Yuman would take off Mr. Tang's glasses and comb his meticulous hair to the back of his head. His whole temperament has changed, he is no longer gentle and honest, he has become a handsome guy. However, when you go out, you must wear your glasses to restore your appearance at school. There is no way, Qian Yuman is still very possessive. Such a handsome husband belongs to her alone, and she does not want to share it with outsiders. In case of the glamorous and cheap on the street instead of noticing Tang Yuj, it is not a picture to add rivals. But I'll go back and ask Mr. Tang in the evening to see what his answer is. Thinking of the new worries today, I asked my friends to help me find a solution. Tomorrow Mr. Tang will go back to S City for a few months. I actually want to follow him. You also know that I have a lot of unpleasant pasts in S City and some people I don't want to see. Although he said that if he doesn't want to go back, he can stay. Stay with me, but I don't want to be so selfish and care about myself. Xiaofeng, do you think I should go back with Mr. Tang? Chow Xiaofeng raised his head and rolled his eyes. Manman, you're not too timid to go back. It's not like you did anything wrong back then. You'll have to go back and face it sooner or later. Besides, it's not a big deal. Just have less contact with them. City S is so big, you may not be able to meet them. However, I am still very interested in City S. I am still worried about where to go after graduation. City S is an international city and there are definitely many development opportunities. With our academic qualifications and abilities, it will definitely be very popular. Don't you want to go too? Chow Xiaofeng nodded heavily, which made Qian Yuman even more distressed. Do you really want to go back? Mother is not around anymore. I love you. Don't you, my beloved concubines, like this handsome guy? End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 85. Chapter 85 Torture to extract a confession from Mr. Tang. The question of where to go made Qian Yuman very hesitant and needed time to think carefully. That day, Qian Yuman went home and cooked a big meal, almost using her best cooking skills, and went to the market to buy fresh ingredients herself. Based on this period of getting along, I gradually caught Mr. Tang's favorite dishes. Mr. Tang likes to eat meat, all kinds of meat, whether fat or lean. She also particularly likes to eat potatoes. She once tried to make a table full of potatoes, and Mr. Tang was very happy to eat them. Thinking that Mr. Tang would be returning to China tomorrow, Qian Yuman felt a little melancholy. Obviously the two of them had known each other for less than a month and had only been married for more than half a month, but she was actually very reluctant to leave him for such a long time. Of course, there is also a small part of her that is reluctant to leave Mobile Yeo-kun, and the two have just been newlyweds. Naturally, I couldn't bear to say goodbye so soon. At night, I took a fragrant bath. As soon as I stepped out, I jumped on him, took out the book in Mr. Tang's hand and threw it aside. Mr. Tang, I ask you very seriously, who are you? Tang Yuj looked at her calmly, with a faint smile on his lips. Why do you suddenly ask me who I am? I am your husband. Qian Yuman shook his head and smiled evilly. Mr. Tang, don't forget that your wife and I are a beautiful woman with a high IQ. She is a top student in a world-class university. You will not succeed if you cheat her casually. Tang Yuj just smiled and did not answer. Qian Yuman smiled broadly and started making trouble with her hands. If you don't answer, I will torture you to extract a confession. Tang Yuj took a breath of air and looked at her with a deeper look. Honey, you are playing with fire. Answer quickly, a doctoral student with a secretary, I don't think that's your identity. He cast a seductive eye in a charming way. Tang Yuj breathed out slowly and grabbed her hand. Don't beg me for mercy later. Tell me, you must be honest so that I can have a chance to beg for mercy. Otherwise, I will turn around and run away, and you will have no choice but to go to the toilet and take a shower. Qian Yuman leaned over and kissed him on the cheek. Tang Yuj raised the white flag to surrender, turned over and pinned her down, feeling a little hesitant and entangled. I don't want to lie. Give me some time and I will tell you everything after I return to China to deal with it. Qian Yuman chuckled. Sure enough, there was something fishy about it, and forcing a confession was still useful. She put her head over and kissed him on the lips. I won't force you to do it. Everyone has secrets that they can't tell, but you are not allowed to lie to me. As for me, I will just wait for you to tell me, but don't let me wait too long. My dear husband. Tang Yuj smiled brightly and looked at the woman under him with more and more concentration. Wife, you are responsible for extinguishing the fire you lit. Yeah. It's necessary, we have to fight hundreds of times. Tweet. Qian Yuman quickly kissed him on the mouth a few times. As for who raised the white flag and surrendered in the final war, it was naturally a brave woman who lit the fire herself and even knelt down to put it out. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 86. Chapter 86 Parting with Mr. Tang. At the airport, Qian Yuman held Mr. Tang's arm and held it tightly. Tang Yuj reached out and touched her head lovingly and said with a slight smile, "Go back. We're about to board the plane." Qian Yuman pouted, holding his hand tighter and reluctant to let go. "You have to come back quickly." "Good. To miss me." She gently leaned her head in his arms. She was about to leave, but she was becoming more and more reluctant to leave. It was over, she was completely seduced by beauty, and she couldn't bear to leave him after only half a month. "Be careful on the road," Qian Yuman said dully. Tang Yuj gently pressed a light kiss on her forehead and held her tightly in his arms. The two people's reluctant appearance made Secretary Zhang, the consignment boy dragging 2 suitcases beside him, envious. He looked into the distance to prevent the dog from being abused anymore. The airport had already begun urging people to board the plane. Qian Yuman's little cherry lips pouted even higher, and the idea of leaving with him arose in her heart. "I am leaving. Kindness. Really gone. Let's go. I am leaving." Qian Yuman finally smiled. "Just leave, it's not that you are not allowed to leave." Since it was too late, Tang Yuj could only say goodbye to her again and beat up Secretary Zhang together. Qian Yuman watched Tang Yuj turn his head 3 times with a warm feeling in his heart. She couldn't help but sigh. In less than 2 months, her world had changed drastically. Mr. Tang had forcefully entered her life and changed her life. Until Tang Yuj could no longer be seen, Qian Yuman turned and left. Suddenly a pair of hands covered Qian Yuman's eyes, and some non-standard Mandarin was heard. "Guess it's water. Are you water? I don't know how to pinch it." Qian Yuman deliberately spoke in the other person's accent, and even made herself laugh after saying it. With her hands loosened, Qian Yuman turned around and saw Xian Yingzhi with blonde hair, smiling brightly at her. Qian Yuman looked at the suitcase next to him and the briefcase beside him. "Yingzhi, where are you going?" "Go back to country Z." Xian Yingzhi chuckled and looked at Qian Yuman with his big round eyes. "What a coincidence that I met you at the airport before I left." "Go back to country Z." Qian Yuman was a little surprised. "Aren't you from M country? Why is the answer used?" Xian Yingzhi shook his head quickly. "I'm not pulling. I just have a Westerner's Z National Silver. I just came to San Francisco for a business trip. When the task is completed, I will return to S City." After finishing speaking, Xian Yingzhi looked at Qian Yuman pitifully. "Although I have returned to China, I will call you often and miss you." Qian Yuman smiled brightly and raised her eyebrows slightly. "Are you in S City?" Xian Yingzhi nodded solemnly. "I spent 2/3 of the year stationed at the branch in City S." Qian Yuman was very surprised. She didn't expect that Xian Yingzhi was also from S City and just came to San Francisco on a business trip. Qian Yuman once again had the idea of leaving with Mr. Tang, and Chao Xiaofeng also had the intention to develop in S City. Mr. Tang's family is in S City, and now even Xian Yingzhi company is also in S City. It seems that everyone is going to S City, a charming city. Qian Yuman couldn't help but smile in her heart. "It just so happens that I've been thinking about whether to go to S City recently." Xian Yingzhi's big eyes suddenly widened, and he held her arms with both hands excitedly. "Xiao Qian, come on. I won't be lonely now that you're here, and I can play with you more often." Si Jenga said, "Because your majesty is too lazy, your majesty doesn't want me anymore," saying that he doesn't favor me today. The following stories all take place in S City, and will revolve around the families of the male and female protagonists. The plot will unfold in a magical way, and many important supporting characters will appear. Guess where the love between Tang Yuj and Qian Yuman will go? The focus of this article is on pampering, and occasionally a little abuse can be used as seasoning. I believe the story will be even more exciting in the future. Please continue to support me. I love you. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 87. Chapter 87. Quietly returning to China. Xian Yingzhi was very excited when he heard that Jian Yuman was coming to S City. He stared at her expectantly. Unlike his excitement, Jian Yuman was still very hesitant. I still want to think about it. Don't think about it, let's go together, don't hesitate, don't be afraid, you deserve S City. He actually wanted to take Jian Yuman to buy a plane ticket and leave, which made Jian Yuman laugh and bend over. She was a typical action person. Even if you really want to go, you have to go back and pack your luggage. Yingzhi, it's time to go. A man came up behind Xian Yingzhi and told him that it was time to board the plane. Xian Yingzhi's little face immediately became tangled up. He still wanted to talk to Xiao Qian. I know, wait a minute. Xian Yingzhi turned around and spoke to a cool guy with a stiff face. The man was dragging his luggage in his hand, and he was obviously looking for stragglers. Xian Yingzhi turned back with a sad face, his brows almost wrinkled, and he was a little reluctant to leave. My colleague called me. I'm leaving. I must come to S City. I'll treat you to a big dinner. Good. Here you come, be sure to find me. I know, Jian Yuman said with a smile. Xian Yingzhi smiled brightly, with two cute dimples on both sides of his cheeks. He smiled and waved goodbye at the urging of his colleagues. After seeing off Tang Yuzhi, Jian Yuman returned home, and Aunt Li and his wife stayed in San Francisco for a long time. For some reason, Jian Yuman felt a little melancholy when she returned home. It was obvious that someone was gone, and the house suddenly became much emptier. Looking at San Francisco again, I have completed my studies and am waiting to get my diploma. Tang Yuzhi has gone back, and Chao Xiaofeng is also going back to China to develop his career. His mother has disappeared without a trace, and the relationship with his uncle's family has completely broken down. There doesn't seem to be much nostalgia for the place, which is completely different from that in China. She has mixed feelings when thinking about S City. Recalling what Chao Xiaofeng said to her yesterday, she straightened her chest and made up her mind. Xiaofeng was right, there was no need to continue escaping, she couldn't never go back, especially after marrying Tang Yuzhi, she would still have to go to that city in the future. After 2 days of thinking, Jian Yuman happily decided to return to City S. After making the decision, she no longer felt sad and relaxed, and she began to leisurely prepare to go to S City. She didn't tell Tang Yuzhi about going back. The two of them rarely called each other these days because of the jet lag. She didn't know what Tang Yuzhi was busy with recently, and no one often answered her calls. Thinking that he might be really busy, she stopped calling to disturb him, and silently prepared to go back. 5 days after Tang Yuzhi left, Jian Yuman returned to the country. No one knew about her return except Chao Xiaofeng. Even Tang Yuzhi didn't tell her. She kept it secret and planned to give him a surprise. Breathing the breath of her hometown again, Jian Yuman's smile was as bright as the sun. I'm back. After she came back, she checked into a hotel directly, put down her luggage and hurried to the interview. It is not easy to take the translator exam. If she were still in San Francisco, she would devote herself to preparing for the exam. However, when she returned to China without some connections and channels, it was particularly difficult to rely on a translator. However, when she was a child, she also had a dream and a second career plan, which was to become a people's teacher. She obtained her teaching qualification certificate as early as the end of last year. Before returning to China, she had already submitted her resume online and received an interview notice, so she rushed to the school for an interview as soon as she got off the plane. Recommendation votes, recommendation votes, recommendation votes, let's sprint. Smash it like crazy. If you love me, love Xiao Manman, love Xiao Jej, and love Xiao Yingying, don't hide it and give them all your recommendation votes. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 88. Chapter 88 The Ruffian. Tianyu is dressed in a regular black and white professional attire, with her black hair tied up. She looks much more mature and stable, but no matter how low-key she is still as gorgeous as a flower, attracting attention when walking on the road. The school she is going to interview for is a well-known aristocratic school in the city, with junior high school and high school. The school she is interviewing for is an English teacher. Tianyu University took English as an elective and majored in French. Although she graduated from a prestigious university, it was difficult for her to teach French at a university based on her academic qualifications. She was also unwilling to teach French in some training institutions, so she decisively chose to become an English teacher in a high school. The school Tianyu chose is the most famous aristocratic high school in the city, with strong teachers and a very high enrollment rate. Teachers' remuneration is very good. The key point is that each teacher only needs to teach 1 or 2 classes. Each class only has 3 classes a week. If there are no classes that day, there is no need to come to school, and there is no need to go to and from get off work on time. As long as they participate in school activities and teaching in a timely manner, that's it. Just like a university professor, one thing is different from a university professor. There is a credit target for each semester. If the score does not meet the standard, you will be eliminated and expelled next year. You can imagine how important the teacher's teaching ability is. You can take it easy, but you have to be careful. If you have poor grades in the class, you will be eliminated. The salary is good, and the requirements for teachers are also very high. She just came here with the attitude of giving it a try. Tianyu looked up at the aristocratic school. The school is a European-style building with a combination of white and purple, covering an area of more than 10 acres. When I see it, I can't help but think of my alma mater, which is as famous as the school. However, the alma mater is a music school with 2 departments, teaching department and music department. If you are not a musical talent, you are a learning genius. Because her alma mater was not as easy as the Irvine Noble College, she decisively submitted her resume to Irvine. Tianyu successfully entered the school. The school was in session and there were no students wandering around. There were only some cleaning aunties and a few teachers. She looked at the road signs to find the interview location, and a flirty voice came from behind her. "Hi. Beauty, look here." Tianyu turned around and saw a 15 or 16-year-old boy standing on a big tree not far away, wearing an Owen High School uniform. The boy was handsome, with fair skin. He dyed his black hair white and a bunch of hair with red highlights. He had a good face that fascinated thousands of girls. He must be very popular in school. He smiled and waved mischievously. She said hello. The young man saw her taking care of herself and saw Tianyu's beauty clearly. He was so shocked that he jumped down from the tree and stood in front of her within a few seconds. He is about 1.8 meters tall, much taller than Tianyu. "Beauty, which class are you in? Please leave your phone number." Tianyu couldn't help laughing, but she didn't expect to be accosted by a young man. "Excuse me, how to get to the administration building?" Tianyu couldn't understand the road signs, so since there were students, she asked her to guide her. "Want to go to the administration building? Give me the phone number and I will take you there." The young man smiled evilly, just like a little hooligan, and fired at Tianyu. Tianyu raised her eyebrows slightly. If she were 5 or 6 years younger, it might still be effective, not to mention that she thinks Mr. Tang is much more handsome than this young man. "I'll find it myself." Tianyu shook her head and left gracefully. He. "You're so arrogant, I like it." The young man didn't feel embarrassed and smiled with interest. "Beauty, wait a minute, I'll take you there." The young man rushed forward and actively took Tianyu to the administration building. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 89. Chapter 89. Unable to contact Mr. Tang. With the young student leading the way, Qian Yuman soon found the interview location. Qian Yuman knocked on the door and entered, and the ruffian boy also wanted to follow. There were several interviewers in the office, one of whom was the dean of students. When he saw the ruffian boy following Qian Yuman, he immediately yelled, "Su Kuorong, you are very courageous now. You are still jumping outside during class, and you even jumped in front of me." The teaching director was an uncle in his 50s. When he saw Su Kuorong, he chased him out aggressively. The ruffian Su Kuorong ran away in fright, waving goodbye to Qian Yuman before running away. "Beauty, I'm running for my life first, see you next time, bye." Su Kuorong was like a little monkey, disappearing in an instant, and the dean couldn't catch up. Qian Yuman looked at the people passing by with a smile on her face, and couldn't help but sigh that being young is good. The dean turned around and saw the beautiful Qian Yuman standing by the door. His body trembled, his eyes lit up, and he was fascinated by her. How could there be such a beautiful woman in the world? He still remembered the information he filled out on his resume and felt beautiful when he saw the photo. He thought that after processing, he was not as beautiful as the photo, but he saw that he was many times more beautiful than the photo. "It's Miss Qian. Please come in." The dean actively welcomed Qian Yuman in, as enthusiastically as the leader. After several rounds of interviews, the interviewers were very satisfied with Qian Yuman. Qian Yuman has rich experience as a tutor. She also taught in a well-known foreign English training institution during the summer, and has quite a lot of teaching experience. "When I was in school, I was the winner of the scholarship every year. I represented the school in many competitions and won good awards. A typical academic with outstanding appearance, foreign ministries of foreign affairs have also been interested in recruiting her. As long as she passes several assessments and interviews, she will become a translator. If it were not because she wanted to return to her country, she might become a diplomatic translator for another country. Although being a translator has a high salary, it requires traveling around the world." The outstanding Qian Yuman successfully passed the interview. The teaching director stretched out his hand to shake Qian Yuman's hand with a smile on his face. "Miss Qian, you will be a teacher in our school from now on, but because you have not received your diploma yet, you will temporarily serve as an intern teacher this semester. If you pass the standard assessment this semester, you can become a formal teacher next semester." "Thank you, Director. I will try my best." Qian Yuman smiled and shook her hand. Unexpectedly, the dean in front of her held her tightly and did not let go immediately, and even dug her palm with his fingers. Qian Yuman still had a smile on her face and slowly pulled her hand back. "Why? Being too beautiful is sometimes a sad thing. When I went to school, I was teased by the pervert director." Qian Yuman officially became the English teacher of the high school department of Owen Noble Academy. She was very excited when she walked out of the school. The work was finally done. It's time to contact Tang Yuge and give him a surprise. Qian Yuman called Tang Yuge, but no one answered. Frowning his eyebrows slightly, he looked at the phone that no one answered for a long time. After a few calls, the phone turned off. Qian Yuman was a little angry and immediately called Secretary Zhang instead. She couldn't believe that Secretary Zhang still didn't answer the call. The phone rang a few times and was connected. "MRS. Where's Tang Yuge?" Qian Yuman shouted angrily, but she didn't answer the phone and even hung up the phone. "Mr. Tang is busy. I'm afraid he won't have time to contact his wife recently. I'll ask him to call you back if he's not busy in a few days." Then he hung up the phone on her cruelly. Qian Yuman looked at her phone in disbelief and called Secretary Zhang again. This time she called Secretary Zhang several times but no one answered. When she called Tang Yuj, the phone still prompted to turn off the phone. What are they doing? She has not contacted Tang Yuj for several days. Is she going to disappear this time? I originally wanted to surprise them, but now they are frightened. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 90. Chapter 90 The Cold Beauty. She didn't give up and called Tang Yuj several times and sent text messages, hoping that he would call back when he had time. Looking at the phone call that had not been answered for a long time, Qian Yuman walked out of the school lonely, looking at the strange and familiar city. Her heart was empty, and she felt sad about where to go. Not being able to contact Tang Yuj was a big blow to her. She hadn't seen him for less than 10 days, but she couldn't contact him. Her surprise for him was in vain, and she didn't know what he was up to. Tang Yuj's loss of contact made Qian Yuman think of her missing mother and another man. Su Warong, her senior. She has not thought of him for a long time since she got together with Tang Yuj. She has lost contact with him for nearly 2 months and has not been able to contact him so far. It is as if he has disappeared from the world. At this moment, she felt empty inside and felt very insecure. She was a little depressed, and she stood helplessly on the street looking around, not knowing where she belonged. Unexpectedly, she would encounter the problem of not being able to find Tang Yuj when she returned to China. She couldn't blame him completely. She came without saying hello in advance. He must be busy with his own things. But as for not answering the phone, snort. Better call back soon or she'll be horrible when she gets angry. She came to a villa area unknowingly and spent an hour walking there. Even though she has been away from the city for 3 years, she still walks here familiarly. Her eyes fell on a Western-style villa building not far away. Looking at the building from a distance, she was familiar and attached to it. This villa she had lived in for many years, from the time she came out to the age of 13, before she moved to another place with her mother. Have always lived here. There are so many memories of her laughter here, which are obviously close at hand, but also as out of reach as the horizon, because it is no longer her home. She hasn't been here since her mother and father divorced. Qian Yuman stood quietly for more than 10 minutes. A car drove slowly from a distance. When she saw the people in the car, she immediately hid behind a big tree to cover her figure. The car stopped, and a tall and glamorous beauty got out of the car. She has long black wavy hair reaching her waist, an oval face unique to Asians, a pair of charming peach blossom eyes without a trace of emotion, and a seductive little cherry mouth that is pursed indifferently without a trace of curvature. Every move she makes is revealed. Looking proud. Looking carefully, her facial features are almost exactly the same as Qian Yuman's, but they feel cold. Unlike Qian Yuman's bright smile, she is cold and beautiful. Qian Yuman saw her looking around excitedly and almost couldn't help but rush forward. Long time no see, she is still the same, expressionless, not close to anyone. The cold beauty felt a scorching gaze staring at her. She looked towards the direction of the big tree where Qian Yuman was hiding. Qian Yuman immediately retracted her head and hid herself behind the big tree, not daring to let anyone in. Discover her existence. The cold and charming beauty looked around with indifferent eyes, but saw no suspicious person. She turned back and looked at the man in the car who smiled very gently. Go back, the cold beauty didn't even have warmth in her voice. You go in first and remember to take care of yourself. I'll come see you tomorrow. No need, I'm busy recently. The man in the car smiled, said a few words and left. After the man left, the glamorous beauty also walked into the house and entered Qian Yuman's former home. Seeing people entering the house, Qian Yuman sighed and left. Sure enough, she still didn't have the courage to see them. Important figures appear and scatter flowers. More to come, ha ha ha. Don't forget to vote for recommendation. End of this chapter.